Mental Health Week, and we have got our lovely speaker, Mary Olga, who is joining us again for a wonderful talk as always. And I don't need to talk much about Mary Olga. I think most of you know her, and what she will say will speak for itself. It will be a very good introduction from herself. Anyway, I'm going to hand over to Mary so that we don't take much of everyone's time. I'll hand over to you, Mary, to crack on.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. Hope you're doing okay, and hope you are keeping your mental health well, or you're looking after your mental health, rather. Yes, so I was here in March sometime, and we had a good night, and I'm hoping today or tonight will be a good night too. So thank you very much for inviting me, Same Difference. It's always a pleasure for me to share what I know about emotional well-being, and I'm always excited to be part of making people's lives better. So our topic today is setting boundaries, or reducing stress by means of setting boundaries. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of really say what boundaries are, then I can get people to kind of participate right from the start. Then I can just build up the topic as we go. Okay, so when we talk about boundaries, what we are talking about is a set of strategies, or a set of rules, or a set of measures that one has to put in place in order to stop harm from coming to you, or from harming somebody else. But mostly today we're going to be focusing on boundaries that mostly provide safety and protection to you. So because we are good at exercising or putting things in place that look after other people, and we are very poor at looking after ourselves, especially because of our culture and maybe religion as well, that we are always looking out for other people and we never include ourselves in this. And I think in the last session I did talk a bit about including yourself in the circle of compassion, like the kindness that you give to other people and the love that you give to others, kind of giving to yourself as well. So it kind of ties in together somehow. So so what are these boundaries? So I have them in kind of two parts. There's internal boundaries, and then there's external boundaries. So the internal boundaries includes being able to control, for instance, your outbursts, being able to control urges. Like examples of that would be always like having the need to seek soothing from somebody else. So finding yourself calling someone that you know is not going to be, what's the word? So calling someone that is not kind. So someone that is going to be critical to you, and knowing that even after that phone call, you're going to feel worse than you started off. So almost like being able to control getting immediate gratification over long-term damage. Like for instance, because you're in pain, you just want someone to soothe you, or someone to take that pain away by means of talking to them. So making that call, even to someone you know is not suitable for that job of soothing you or supporting you, you'd still go ahead and do that. And then when that person is not supportive, they put you down after the call, you feel worse. Or overeating to satisfy your emotional, to satisfy your emotional stress. So, you know, for people that that emotionally eat, or do what's called emotional eating, or binge eat because they're stressed, and definitely that binge eating will soothe that immediate problem of wanting a lift or a feel-good moment, because that overeating will produce your feel-good hormones. The overeating will reward you with some dopamine, which will make you feel good just a little bit. But in the long term, you are going to feel rubbish because of probably how unhealthy you're going to become of that. So I will do less of talking of the internal boundaries, because those need a lot of work. They need probably one work where you're actually looking at what drives you to not being able to control your urges and all that. So I'll leave that for serious one-to-one kind of work. So the external boundaries, which is what I'm going to really, really focus on today, is measures that we put in place to protect ourselves from other people. Yeah. So those things like saying no when you mean no. Right. So saying yes when you actually want to participate in something. Right. So maybe what I'll do now is, before I actually go deeper into how you can actually set these boundaries, if I can just get a bit of participation from everyone. Hi Tandy, I've just seen Tandy joining. So what is it that stops you from or what struggles do you find from saying no, or correcting people when they're doing things that you don't like, or things that you know are harmful to you? What struggles do you find? What stops you, rather? What stops you from saying no when you want to say no, or from telling people the truth, especially if they're hurting your feelings?
Shall I start?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Ma.
Hi. Hi, I'm Junior. Well, for me particularly, I think it's more the conflict, really. Having to say no, the conflict that comes after that, or just the repercussions of what comes after that, is what I have to avoid. So yeah, it's the conflict.
Okay. So when you say no, what do you feel? What is it that you're running away from?
It's how that person is going to react. So when I say no and they get mad, and then we have to have that conversation of why I'm saying no, and I'm having to explain myself, because I know you're not supposed to explain yourself when you say no, but then you just find yourself trying to explain your reasons for why you're refusing to do something. Mm-hmm. So I think it's all that. And then I'll find myself saying yes anyway. So I always think, well, I might as well just give in to whatever it is before I even get myself through that whole process.
Or being made to feel bad for refusing, or having to go into the conflict. Anyone else who struggles to put boundaries or to say no when they need to say no?
Hello. I think mostly it's because of our culture. It's very difficult for us to come out clean, or to just say it in somebody's face, to say, no, I don't want to. We just find ourselves a bit reserved, and finding the right words or kinder words, going around in circles, trying to put a point across that you don't really want to do it, but you don't really, say it clearly, or just straight on to say, no, I don't want to do it. I think it's a culture thing, the way we were brought up. You don't want to hurt somebody else's feeling, at the same time hurting your feelings. So you think of other people first before you think of yourself.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Thank you, Priscilla. Anyone else who's got so think of others first, not wanting to hurt the others' feelings. Anyone else? Hello, everyone that's joining. We're just talking about what is it that makes why you find it difficult to set boundaries. So I just chose one boundary, really, which is saying no when you mean no. Like what would be in the way of you exercising that boundary or saying what you need to be saying? What's in the way? Anyone? So we got culture, we got avoiding of conflict. Oh, sorry, McDonald.
Yeah, lack of boldness.
So you want courage. So what's taking away the courage?
I don't know. We know what we want to say, but we just don't have the courage. I think, like the previous speaker said, due to cultural barriers, fear of upsetting others and whatnot.
Okay, thank you, McDonald. Anyone else?
Yeah.
What are you? We've got fear of upsetting others, thinking of other people's feelings before your own, fear of conflict, and just not having the courage, and having culture being what has trained us to be what we are. Okay, anyone else?
I think the other thing is the type of relationship as well. For instance, if it is my child, I'll say no. If it is my mom, I would just think, there is that boundary. I think there is that respect to say, I can't say no to my mom. It's just like I'm telling her off, or, I think it's the type, it depends on the type of relationship as well.
Okay, all right. All right, so all these points are very valid, and it's important that we actually are aware of it. So the way we were raised gets a lot in the way of us actually being assertive. So not being able to say no when you want to, not being able to communicate your needs is actually a lack of assertiveness. And that comes from how we were raised, in that we were not heard, we were just seen, we were just there. So we're not either seen or heard. And some people were just seen and not heard, but other people were not seen and not heard as well. So your contribution didn't matter. And what then happens is that way of raising children breeds what we are today, which is people that are not able to ask for their needs. Because when we are failing to say no, it means that we're actually failing to ask for our needs. We know what we need. You know in that moment that you need to say no, and you just find yourself either paralyzed, or you kind of go around the bushes, like Priscilla said, or you actually consciously avoiding the conflict, like Ginia said, right? Or in a nutshell, you lack the courage to walk away, like McDonald says. No, sorry, you lack the courage, like McDonald said, to actually confront a situation, even though you want to. Okay, so what do we need to do? What do you think? Do you know what we need to do? Okay, we've identified it's our lack. Okay, yeah, Tandy.
Okay, no, I just wanted to answer your question, that one you just posed right now, that what do we need to do? I think first of all, we need to have self-awareness and have a deep understanding of who we are, identify your strengths, your weaknesses, identify your needs, like what makes you happy, what doesn't make you happy. Then from then on, you'll be able to draw boundaries on what you allow in and what you don't want to have in your space.
Thank you so much. That was so beautifully put. Yes. So we lack what is necessary actually to be able to make these boundaries. We rely on other people for defining who we are. So because those people play an important role, they're almost holding your sense of self in their hands. And your sense of self is so attached to those people, so much that you fear upsetting them. You will always put their feelings first. Why? Because they hold so much value in who you are. So the first thing we need to be working on is actually that, or detaching the sense of who we are from other people. And the mistake that we have done, I think across all cultures actually, is that there's been a lot of emphasis on growing things that are outside of ourselves. So the sense of who we are is almost always outside of ourselves. So because of that, we rely on relationships, different types of relationships, to really form who we are. And yet all of who we are should be coming from inside. And everything else that is outside of us is our roles. So being a mother is a role, being a partner is a role, being a friend is a role, being a child is a role. So all those things, they are roles that we play as opposed to defining who we are. But when we are so much attached to those and we have nothing inside of us that holds the definition of who we are, then we are at risk then of being so afraid to mess about with things that are us. So we're almost like at an unconscious level messed up in thinking that your relationship or the quality of your relationship with that person that you struggle to put boundaries is who you are. It means that person holds a big chunk. So if we were to draw a chart, you'll see that the people that you fail or that you struggle to put boundaries with, they hold quite a big chunk in the definition of who you are. So when that's not addressed, or if you've not worked on developing a sense of self-efficacy, a reliance on you as being the main player in your identity, then you are going to be at the mercy of the people around you, right? So for a lot of people, people say, oh, I know who I am, I know who God says I am, and yet when you really look at their lives, it's almost like we are defined by what others think of us more than by what God thinks of us. We know when we do things in private, for instance, we're okay with God seeing that. But then if at all we have to allow other people of our outside to see it, it's so paralyzing. Why? So that is an indicator that we worry more about what other people think of us rather than who, for instance, God says we are. Yes, that if you believe that, there is a higher power, in whichever form that is. So that sense of worrying so much what people think of us will always affect how we function in relationships, different relationships, whether it's romantic relationships with our siblings, with our parents, even with our children as well, right? So putting a boundary would require you to start working first internally so that you're stronger in that. If there's a conflict between you and the person that you are having the conflict with, it's okay because you still have you. So also understanding that you are the common denominator of everything that is happening around you. So the relationship that you have with yourself has to come first. Right? For you to be able to put boundaries, the relationship that you have with yourself, it needs to change. It has to be a game changer. From today, you have to start seeing that relationship differently. Because when we go out to seek validation from others, we are saying, I trust you so much with my life to the next person. I know it kind of sounds like we're moving away from the topic and the boundaries, but we're not. I'm just trying to get deeper for you to understand why it's hard to set those boundaries. When we are going to the other, right, the people that we value so much, right, we are saying, I trust you to define who I am. I trust you with the key of my happiness, right? So my happiness and my stress levels are dependent on what your mood is today. You, my valuable one, right? That's what we're saying to the person that we are so scared of telling the truth, right? You are so valuable, and I depend on you. My life depends on you. My happiness depends on you. My stress levels depend on you because you hold the key to all those things. Because I cannot put my feelings before yours. I value your feelings before my own. I see you before I see me. And so because of where we are, we then become invisible to ourselves. You understand that? We are so invisible to ourselves and more visible to and and we see the other people more than we see ourselves. So the more we are then trying to what's the word? Kuseva, I think. The more we're trying to save these relationships with the other people, the more we are denying our own needs. Why? Because we are not important. I guess it goes back again to the topic that I spoke when I was here, when I was saying you are the VIP of your life. So we have to start really believing that you are important. So I am important. My needs are important. I am the common denominator of what? Of the relationship that I have with everybody else. So if I don't value myself, if I don't see myself, how can I sell myself to other people? Right? So because putting boundaries is also a way of, so putting boundaries is a way of selling yourself. So imagine if you're a salesman and you don't believe in your product and you don't even know your product. How are you going to convince somebody else to buy it or to see the value in it? Right? So just like Tandy said, we do not, I've lost that now. Tandy said that we do not, I think that we don't know ourselves. So she said self-awareness, getting to know ourselves, like she cited that as one of the most important things that needs to happen for us to be able to set boundaries. So we need to know who we are, just like the salesman would need to know the car or all the qualities that that car has. So you need to know yourself in and out properly. You need to spend time knowing yourself. You need to really start valuing yourself in order to, for you to be able to go out there and really demand what is worth of you. So back to the boundaries. You can only set your boundaries with someone when you start believing in you more than you believe in them. Is that making sense? Unless you start believing in yourself more than that person you're trying to set boundaries with, it's going to be near impossible. You actually cannot do it. So there's going to be a mindset shift. Between each relationship is going to be different. So look at each relationship as a bit by bit, like each individually, and think, what's my struggle with this relationship? So you would need to stop thinking that person is superior to you. So sometimes there's an unconscious game going on there where you actually think they're superior to you. So every time you struggle to say no to somebody, every time you struggle to communicate your needs with someone, assess that relationship. There is a I am inferior to you and you are superior to me thing going on with that relationship. Okay, so only until you're able to switch it in your head that you are an equal to everyone. Okay, so that's the first thing. Before we can set boundaries with people, we need to start believing that my relationship with that person is equal, that we are equals in this game. So when you find that balance and know that you're an equal to that person, then you'll be able to do the things that I'm about to tell you. Without that, you're just probably going to write things down that won't be able to be delivered. So you can only deliver these things if you tell yourself that you're an equal, right? And if you cannot feel that you're an equal, then maybe there's some work that's required, especially if that person has a lot of influence in your life, because no one should be superior over you. That's the first rule. No one should be superior. You shouldn't be superior over anyone, and no one should be superior over you. Okay, so how do we set these boundaries then? So the first thing to do is to be clear about your boundaries. And I think Priscilla mentioned this, okay? So you have to be clear. So I always use the analogy of a proper borderline or a border, the fencing. That if you had a border or a neighbor, if you use tarmacs, those white lines we have on the road. If you use just markings, just put, a marking between you and the neighbor. what's going to happen with the neighbor? Do you think they will stay on their side if does that stop them from coming onto your side? If you just put the markings that we put on the road.
Fitting in plays a big role. This has had an impact on how we value ourselves, and let alone this is impacting on our children. And setting boundaries for ourselves also becomes a challenge.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Rose, for your contribution. Yes. So because belonging, like Rose says, belonging is a big thing for us. Yes, we want to belong, but in in trying to belong, we also have to identify ourselves as individuals, right? Because otherwise we get lost in the identity of the group or in the identity of others. So we really want to establish who we are first. Like Tandy said, that you need to know who you are. So self-awareness is a great thing. Okay, so the first thing I was saying, if you put in tarmacs between you and the neighbor, what will then happen is the neighbor can just cross over that, just as if they're crossing across the road, and you cannot blame them for coming across. So we don't want to be putting boundaries that are very wishy-washy. And when we put those tarmacs, what we're saying is we're not being clear on what we're actually saying to people. So when people then cross these boundaries, it's because we were not clear in actually what we were saying. And that comes through when we are trying actually to avoid the subject, and we're just going, not round and round actually, but just not saying anything. Is like putting a tarmac and hoping that that person gets the message. And then sometimes we say silence is golden. Putting a tarmac between you and that person, between your houses, is like, silence, because that person is not going to know what you actually mean by that silence. They're kind of just reading between, or it almost, they can come up with their own interpretation of why you were silent. So sometimes we go silent and then come back when we feel calmer, and we carry on, and then we wonder why these people keep disrespecting us or breaking these boundaries. It's because we were not clear about the fact that we didn't like what they did. So if somebody was being disrespectful, they were speaking to you, they were being mean, or they were just saying unkind things, if we don't let them know, guess what? They'll do it again tomorrow. If someone keeps asking you for money and you do not tell them that you don't want to be giving them anymore, if you're not clear, guess what? And then you just switch off your phone, again, hoping that it will go away. It will not go away. You're thinking you've set a boundary, but you haven't, because that person will cross it again and they'll call you next month because you've not let them know where you stand with it. So you've not protected yourself. And what will happen in terms of stress, even though that person is not asking for money, between now and the next time they do, somehow you're still worrying over it, right? Or if you keep quiet because your partner has said some unkind things, not addressing it is, again, like putting those tarmacs between the two houses and hoping that that person will see it. But your partner may not read your mind, because partners are not mind readers. So what will then happen is it will happen again next week. And then again, you will continue to suffer the same kind of problem. And even between the times that your partner is doing it, you are still stressed and worried that it might happen again. And boom, definitely it will happen again. Why? Because you did not set a clear boundary. You just so your behavior, you're thinking maybe it's a deterrent, but it's not, because you've just put little paint markings between them and you. And the next time the neighbor will just walk across. So the next thing that you can do in terms of setting boundaries, keeping with that analogy of a fence, is people do put walls, right? Like long walls. That's when you cut the person off, you block them off, but really what you've done is you have just run away. So when we put a wall, to imagine a proper wall, what it does is it protects us from that person and their behavior, but it doesn't allow us then to grow and enjoy, this relationship, or enjoy anything else, because now we are stuck behind a wall where we can't enjoy life to the fullest. So putting big walls, cutting people completely and stuff, especially if they were important to you, does not work in the long run. Because at some point you will have to deal with them anyway. So while you're behind this wall, while you've blocked them, you're probably going to worry at some point now and again regarding the relationship or lack of. If they're a relative, you're going to meet them at a party again, boom, you're having anxiety again. Or if you're told that somebody's died and the chances of meeting that person is very high, that you're now avoiding going to a loved one's funeral, or you're now avoiding going to a loved one's wedding because what? That toxic person that you've put a wall for is probably going to be there, right? So especially with people that we cannot run away from completely, putting walls does not solve the problem, right? So what might solve the problem, okay? What will solve the problem is having a clear fence. I don't know if you guys know what a picket fence is, but it's those white little fence that we see in American movies, in the suburbia kind of movies, where there is a little fence that goes up to probably your belly button, and usually painted in white as well. So you want to make a boundary that resembles a picket fence painted in white. So your boundary has to be clear, has to be visible from a mile away, right? So when you have a picket fence, people can see it. They can see that that's so-and-so's neighbor's fence, and it starts from here. So people can see it even from a long way. So what that looks like as a boundary is you have just said one sentence to stop people from identifying. So what I always teach people is when you are setting boundaries, you want to say one line. You can say two, but no more than two ever, but one line is perfect. And that one line has to be about you, right? So what we call I statements. So the statement has to be about you, not the other person. And what that is saying is, I am being accountable for my own protection here. I'm not, so for instance, if you're in a relationship where you felt that your partner is abusive or unkind and they're being mean, so instead of you trying to get them to rescue you from their bad behavior, you rescue yourself from that bad behavior. And this is how it looks like, okay? If the partner says, can someone help me out? What could an unkind partner say to you? Then I can use a real example from somebody. What could an unkind partner say to you?
You're fat.
You are lazy.
Yeah, I was trying to avoid it. Yeah, you are too fat.
Yeah.
You have mental issues. You're useless. Yes.
Yeah.
You are. Or say something like very unpleasant about your body or weight, or even say you're ugly if you're a woman. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So yes.
You are
so
lazy.
If
somebody said you're lazy.
Yes, okay, you're lazy and you've got mental issues. Okay, yeah. So any one of those that are listed there in the chart, you're lazy, you're useless, you're fat, you are too skinny, or you're flat, whatever it is, or you got mental issues. So the thing to say, so normally people that get abused in their victimness, they usually respond like this. Please don't say that to me. That's not very nice, right? So you're begging that person to be kind to you, right? And if you're the unfortunate, if you're unfortunate to be dating a narcissist, for instance, they actually thrive from making you feel crap. So that's not going to change their behavior. Or anybody that abuses somebody, really, it's a power struggle thing. So the whole point is to put you down for them to gain power and control over the relationship. So they are never going to rescue you from their own bad behavior, right? So what you then want to do is to empower yourself by always using an I statement and setting that boundary. So it would sound like this. For instance, let's pick, you have mental issues. So just saying to that person, I do not appreciate people that speak to me in that manner, right? Or I do not appreciate people who say unkind things to me. Or I will not appreciate people saying unkind things to me anymore. right? If this is your first time ever trying that anymore. So this unkind person might do it again because they're thinking, gosh, you're calling bluff or whatever the word is. So if they say it again, you'd still repeat, you become a broken record, right? I do not appreciate people that speak to me like that, right? And if the person carries on, again, you carry on using an I statement, you'd say, I am walking away from this conversation because I do not appreciate anyone speaking to me like that. And you walk away. So what you've done is you've not just done the mental thing or the emotional boundary thing, you've also done a physical boundary thing. You are walking away from the energy of somebody who's consistently actually or repeating to offend you when you'd already put in that boundary initially with your words. You actually walk away from it, right? And if this is to happen again the second time, what you're trying to do is to train people how to behave around you. And I believe people are normal, right? The second time, if you do it again consistently, they will stop doing it, right? What they'll try to do sometimes is to manipulate you. Again, what? It's a mind game that people that abusers or that mistreaters do. They will because it's a power struggle game thing that people are playing always. If someone has time and energy, try and read a book called The Games That People Play by Eric Berne. Yeah, B-E-R-N-E. Eric Berne. Games People Play. It's very complicated. It sounds very complicated, but you'll learn a lot in actually understanding what is actually going on in the transactions that we do with people, right? So always use I statements. Because what an I statement does is giving responsibility to you, and it's not attacking that person. So what you're doing with an I statement is you are saying, this is what I am, almost like, this is the requirement, this is my requirement. To be okay with me, this is a requirement that you have to observe. So you are not saying, do this. You're saying, this is the requirement, so do it or don't. But if you don't, there's a consequence, right? But you're not saying all that. All you are just saying is stating what your requirement is. Okay, but sometimes because of our guilt, because we feel uncomfortable, again, because we have been trained to worry about the other person's feelings over ours, what we'll do is we'll nicely put our statement, right? It's nice and clear, picket fence, it's there now. And then the guilt comes in. And then you start saying, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean. And then we start coming up with other things. And I call that putting what? The rose bushes around your picket fence. Now you're putting the rose bush around it. And it's now not visible. You've actually wasted your time even erecting the picket fence in the first place. Do you see? So that statement loses its power the minute you start throwing other things around it. That's what I'm saying. Assertiveness is one sentence. Sometimes a phrase is enough, but one sentence. I'll give you one sentence. Assertiveness only requires you to say a clean one statement that does not attack the person you're trying to work with. Because a lot of the times what we do is when we say you, as the minute that person hears you, they're already triggered, they're already thinking you attacked them. And when someone feels attacked, they feel unsafe, and in their brain, there is a part of the fight or flight mechanism that's triggered, and you've already lost them. Right? So now they are in defense mode. And this is happening at an unconscious level. So you want to avoid using the word you because it is placing blame. So when I say, I do not tolerate people speaking to me like that, what I'm doing is I'm talking about me. So you have no right to say, I should tolerate it or I shouldn't feel that way. Right? You cannot argue with that. Because I'm feeling it, I'm wanting it. So you have, what else have you got to say about it? So again, when we then start chucking in the rose bushes that I talked about around our clean statement that we've put in, what you're doing again is you are then starting maybe to offer promises. You are starting to weaken your position by allowing that person to come in and argue with you until maybe you say what? You say, okay. So when for instance, let's go back to the no that we started with. So if somebody's asking you for something, they're not necessarily being mean. They're constantly stressing you because either they're asking you for money all the time. So a lot of the times we get this from family or in friends as well in the diaspora. Abroad. So they will say, oh, please, can you get some money? So when you don't state your no precisely and clearly, and you say, oh, I don't know, things are not going well for me. And then now you're going around the houses now, right? You are opening a chance for that person to give you options, to talk you into you thinking about options, right? So someone could actually say to you, oh, what if you do an extra shift? But doing an extra shift means what? You're putting your body under more stress, your brain under more stress and worry. It's probably going to keep you away from your family or your children. Again, people that want things from you are just doing it from their own self-loving place. I don't even want to call it a selfish place. They are looking out for themselves. So we need to always think of that. And when they try to shame us to say, you have said no, it's because what? And then they might call you selfish. So that's very common. When we say no to people, they try to shame us by saying what? That we're selfish. But guess who's also selfish? The person who's looking out for their own needs, because they want you to meet their needs. So they're being selfish as well. So in fact, there's nothing called selfish. Everyone is trying to self-love. So when you are saying no, what you're doing is what? Is not selfishness. You're self-loving the same way that person who's demanding or asking something for you is self-loving and what? Trying to get their needs met. By you putting a boundary and saying, no, I cannot, you are what? Self-loving, and you're what? Exercising what is called looking after your own needs or looking out for your own needs. So we should try it now and again. Let's self-love by what? Looking out for our own needs. So when people ask us for things that make us feel uncomfortable, we should stop and think, okay, they are self-loving past my boundary. Okay? Should I allow them to do that or not? This is where the key, holding the key in your own pocket thing starts. Right? This person is loving themselves past my picket fence. Well, you didn't put a picket fence. That's why they're kind of crashing over, because you're used to putting a line. They've just stepped over the line that you put thinking that's a boundary when it's not. You cannot blame them for that. They didn't see it. But now that you have this awareness about, oh, I don't feel okay about this. So what do? You stop and think, okay, this person is loving themselves. That's why they're in my space. So why don't I love myself as well and let them know that they're too close to my boundary or they've overstepped the boundary, and let them move back a bit. And they'll move back, trust me, if you put a clear boundary. I'm sorry, no, I cannot. Oh, please, please, please. No, I cannot, right? If you think it's something that you can do, maybe in whatever you say, maybe in 6 months' time, I'll be in a better position, but no, not at the moment. And trust me, they will not come back before 6 months. And at least in the meantime, you are still trying to sort yourself out in terms of strengthening yourself, whatever that you need to be working on internally, right? Thanks, Tandy, for that comment. That's very true and very enlightening. Thank you very much for your comment. So yes, so we need to be very, 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 very intentional in protecting our own needs as well, because we are important. If you were here last time when I was here, I said, you are a VIP of your life as well. And until you start thinking you're important, people will just walk all over you. You can't set those boundaries. So let's see. So let's see what then happens when we put our picket fence nicely and then we start talking too much and then putting rose bushes around. People can't see that picket fence, which means that statement that you've said does not make sense anymore, right? then it means our boundary is nowhere to be found. The people will keep doing it over and over again. So look out for yourself. Why? Because when we start doing that, our stress levels will just slowly start to decline. There's no special science to it. When we start looking after ourselves, for instance, going to bed on time, sometimes what could stop you from going to bed on time? It could be that you don't have boundaries in when you cut off picking people's phones up, right? Have a boundary. Say by this time at night, I do not take anybody cold. I have people I know that are like that, and they will not pick up the phone. And with time, people just learn that I don't call Tandy or Amanda or whoever after 8 o'clock. That's a boundary. Sometimes we just always think of boundaries as a protective thing when things are going off. But if we think of boundaries that we can put in place before people even approach us and maintain those boundaries, people will get it eventually. So if somebody kept on calling and you've put your boundary silently, that, I will not call after 8, I will not pick up calls after 8. If somebody keeps calling, the next time they call in during the right time, you remind them, oh, I'm sorry, I know I saw 8 missed calls. I don't pick up my call after 8. And what you will see with that discipline is you will be less stressed because you'll sleep on time. People that sleep on time and have enough rest have natural lower levels of cortisol, which is the stress hormone, right? So lack of sleep actually just raises our stress hormone for nothing, even when there's nothing stressing us. Because what then it does, it kind of, when we don't sleep enough, what will happen is our mind is not recharged enough. So we are not alert enough. We're having to use a lot more mental energy to function. So it closes what we call the window of tolerance. I was about to say window of opportunity. Window of tolerance becomes smaller. So you can imagine if your window of tolerance is small, when your son or daughter said, "Mommy," you're like, "Ah, what?" You know? Why? Because you're already stressed because you didn't sleep enough hours. So just that. Lack of sleep can send someone to a psychiatric unit, right? So we need to be intentional in looking ourselves at that level as well, having that discipline that I'm going to work enough hours. I'm going to sleep just enough hours, right? I'm not going to overwork myself. Because when we really look at it, when we overwork, either we are being pushed somehow to keep up in appearance. Yeah. So when we're honest with ourselves, sometimes we overwork because we need to buy something or do something to keep up in appearance, right? When really all those things don't matter. They matter because we've made them matter. Or because we cannot say no to someone who's constantly needing our help. But when we help people, really, it's what we're doing is we're not allowing them, or actually we're enabling their disability. So we are not allowing them space to grow for themselves. And at that moment, you're not letting them grow. So you're doing them as disservice. And then you are damaging yourself with the more and more stress that you're going to feel or experience, with the body tiredness, with all these things. So it's that simple, right? Just having boundaries around looking after yourself. And then also being able to detect that, you know what, I should not be spoken to like this. And being assertive, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's in your relationship with a spouse, whether it's a relationship with a mom. I know Priscilla did say that, or when someone is older, because of how things are, or the way we are raised, that older people, you cannot be assertive with older people. Again, you'd always have to check, because sometimes we have toxic parents. And sometimes what we need to do is, if we can't gently put the picket fence and say that line, then maybe what we need to do is probably put the wall up for a while and just rest from that toxicity. Any boundary sometimes is better than no boundary, right? I know I said walls are no good, but there are times when you have no choice, you got to build a wall and just distance yourself. At least so you can break that cycle of the stress for a while, until hopefully you've built yourself up enough to know that you matter too. And you can then say, Mom, you know what? I can't keep doing this anymore. And it's okay to upset her. And when we upset people, we need to give them benefit of the doubt that they are adult enough to resolve this within themselves eventually. They'll be fine. They might not actually like you anymore, but that's fine as well, because if your relationship was dependent on you being a doormat, why would you want to carry on with that relationship anyway? You see, so that goes back to valuing yourself, knowing who you are really. When we say we know who we are we really? BP Innovaya, Quira, and demands. Oh, I tell you, thank you for that. You know, and then we go on medicines that we have no purpose being on, you know what I mean? Because we are afraid to upset other people in favor of us being poorly, right? This country is very, very stressful. I always say that to people. Just being in England is just, while you're just sitting with nothing happening, it is a very stressful place to be. So when we don't put these boundaries in, when we don't say no when we should be, when we don't say yes, when we don't communicate what our needs are, we just become unwell over that. So we need to be able to say no. We need to be defending ourselves every time speaks to us anyhow. Walking away and being avoidant does not resolve things in the end. But most of all, I think, start working on who you are so that you're dependent on you. So that when those relationships break down because they were a transaction that wasn't fair, or they were a money transaction, they only need you when you can do things for them, then you actually want to be moving away from that, because it's a toxic kind of transaction. Yeah. So we shouldn't be just wanting to be connected to people just because of what we give them. Because when we have nothing to give because we're sick, what happens? We have nobody, we have nothing. Again, then we're suffering on our own. Yes. Any questions? Sorry, any questions, anyone?
Somebody put in the comments earlier on, I think it was referring to when you put boundaries or if you are assertive, and they said sometimes when you become assertive, people will, let me go back to the comment, they will feel overpowered. They'll feel, I think it was saying they'll feel overpowered and fuel up the situation or make it worse, especially if it's the first time. You know, it comes as a shock to the abuser, especially in abusive relationship. It comes as a shock to the abuser, and they try and fuel up the situation. So I think the comment was referring to that, you know, when you putting boundaries.
So, all right. So I guess if we were referring to an abusive relationship, I guess it's very difficult, especially if the person is physically abusive, because then they'll use the physical because you have overpowered them verbally, right? And I think that's why people get beaten up a lot as well, because they have challenged that person verbally, and then they feel like, okay, I'm going to use my strength or whatever it is. So it may not be safe to do that, right? The safest thing maybe to be doing that is to build your own self-worth and actually just leave that person. Rather than, but if you're in a power struggle, maybe with a friend or a relative or other people that keep stressing you like that, then you can exercise these things. But whatever you do, just make sure that you're not in physical, there's no risk of being physically harmed. So thank you very much, whoever wrote that. Because trying to be assertive to someone who physically harms you, they're just going to use that. And so you're not winning. So if anyone hurts you physically and that's going to be an ongoing thing, the best thing is to build your own strength. And so the assertive thing to do will be to leave them or get help to be able to leave them. Because most times those people are not going to go into any counseling or therapy to change. So you are the one who have to save you from them. And that is the boundary, I guess. You leave them and stay away from them. So that is another way of being boundary and saying, I am not tolerating this anymore. So instead of communicating it by verbally, you actually leave, you walk away and don't come back. Okay, anybody else?
I just wanted to add on to what you mentioned about how, like, sometimes some relationships you have to put a pause and then you come back to it. I think for me, what actually helps is that for me, I block people. If I feel like they're not listening to me, I just end up blocking them. And sometimes if I'm careless enough, I even tell the person, I'm going to block you. And when you're ready to speak to me in a respectful manner, I'll be here. Sometimes you have to take that, push, like you have to push and block people, even though it sounds harsh, but the intention is good because you just don't want that energy in your life. You don't want someone to come and steal your joy and come and leave you in a miserable state, and then they just go on and move on with their life. So sometimes it's worth it, especially people that are back home, the ones that are always asking for money. Ladies and gentlemen, it's good to just block, and then that's how some people get the message.
Yeah. And thanks, Tandy, for that. But what I like about what you've said is you communicate that you're about to do that and the reason you're doing that. And you're then saying, I am open. So you're not necessarily putting a wall and just being quiet. You're saying, this is why I am putting this wall up. Until you start behaving yourself and until you're ready to behave well, I am not having you in my space. So that is a very assertive thing. But just blocking that person without communicating that does nothing. Okay, it gives you a little break, but they're just going to come back and say, oh, sis, again, and then being their sweet little self in a manipulative way and just want to suck that money out. But if you have given them homework, like you said, Tandy, they're going to think about it, and they'll only come back when they've thought about it and they're ready to play it on your terms. So yeah, well done. Yes, but it's got to be communicated. So thank you very, very much. Thank you, ladies. Anyone else with a question? Closing. So it is beneficial. Yes, it may be harder initially, especially to deal with the guilt feelings around these boundary settings. But once you free yourself, you will be so stress-free or close to stress-free as possible. Because like Tandy says, you don't want people that just mess with with the energy that you have. We struggle with our own things anyway. So when you're having other people burden you with stress, it's just not, just by eliminating people and giving them instruction on how to behave around you, it goes a long way in reducing your stress.
Some people though, once you start creating that boundary, they even hate you more and call you names, just to protect themselves, from that boundary, because they don't want to see a boundary between you and them. So you create a boundary and say, I am not doing this, or I'm not accepting this. And then they come back and say, for example, oh, you are a witch, or you are this, or you are, mean, so that they sort of offload their feelings because, like I mentioned earlier, it comes as a shock.
Okay, so with what that we've been talking today, what would you do if somebody did that to you? You've set your boundary clear, and then they come back with a counterattack. What would you do?
I think I'll go to Tandy, block.
It's true. It actually happened to me. Actually, after telling someone I'm gonna block the person called me childish and said so many names. But I didn't let it affect me because I knew my intentions. So sometimes you just have to pick your battles, and it's up to you to accept what people say about you. So I didn't take it personal. I knew it was a reaction, but then after like a month or so, that person came back and apologized.
Thank you. People do respect us. So what we get from our boundary setting is respect, because you just imagine people in your life that are respected. They are boundaried. They have boundaries. So, but when you've been boundaryless, it will take a lot for you to reach that place where people start saying, you, I did, but they still respect that. We have people that we say, you, but we still respect those people. And we're still, when we're around them, we behave ourselves. Is that not true? Yes. So let's be one of those people who, when people are talking about them, like, you better not mess about. So let's value ourselves enough to not be scared of what others think of us, especially when we know we're not wrong. So even if they call you Muroi, again, the people that really know you and respect you would know that this person is tantruming, and it's okay. So we should be okay. But if your relationship with that person is so important to you, that's where the problem comes, you see, because you love them and you love the connection more than you love yourself, and there'll be a big problem. So we should start moving away from loving these connections with others more than we love ourselves, because we'll be stuck then when they are now maybe getting other people involved in this and kind of gang neglecting you or whatever it is. But I wish you all well in your boundary setting, and I hope it all ends well. But you know, I run these free Thursday night coaching and training sessions. You can come along, guys. It's sorry, it's kind of ladies only at the time for now. It's 7 p.m. every Thursday on Zoom. Priscilla can kind of link you up.
One comment, and we've got Leo Maurice, she's got a hand up. So the other comment is from Charles. Thank you for the presentation, but I've often believed this saying, silence is God, and obviously it's at variance with your presentation. So yeah, communicate. I think, well, I'm not going to say. Anyway, Lillian's hand is up.
Okay, Lillian.
Thank you for sharing the nuggets. But I heard people saying, blocking, being assertive is not being rude.
No, but you've communicated. You see what Tandy was saying? You have communicated.
Right. I think what we need to understand is being in a relationship with relatives or friends, sometimes it's quite to have what we call emotional intelligence, because sometimes my emotional are not stable, and you are treating me with that without understanding why am I coming so needy. Especially, I liked when you say in UK, things can be very tough. You need to know how you say that, because a lot of people, they say that in an aggression way, like underlying aggression. Yes, you want to set boundaries, but I would love people to learn that blocking somebody, it can be quite emotional, traumatic, rather than amending or putting boundaries. So there should be other approaches rather than blocking a person. Talking from a mental health practitioner, you'll be more traumatizing that person emotionally. So it's not helping the situation. You block me, but remember, life is a ball. I want you to understand that I don't like what you are saying, but I can say that I will not block you.
Okay, so my take on what Tandy said, I think she would have had put boundaries and boundaries and boundaries, and this person is blocking it. And I'm assuming you're saying the person is not emotionally intelligent enough to be understanding why I'm putting this boundary or what's going on. Does it, you know? But at the end of the day, should I go to a psychiatric unit and leave my kids on their own because of you? Because of your own unstableness? I think we got to get to a point, I think, where we understand that people, like, we don't own people. People, something else out there owns people, not you, right? So someone else has to come and be their guardian angel while I look out for myself, because we cannot always be sacrificing ourselves. That's my point, to the point where you're actually feeling so stressed that you think you're going to lose it mentally. Why? Because we are constantly putting other people first. People that are affected by lack of boundaries, they know themselves. They're so vulnerable. They rely on other people's validation and all that. That's why it's hard for them to say no. So if you have never been in that space, you would never understand. It's like talking to someone who suffered some narcissistic abuse. If you've never had a narcissistic partner, you wouldn't even know what this person is trying to explain to you. And would see it. What do you mean? Has he ever talked? You know, has he? It's just this understanding that only people that have ever dated narcissists would know. So it's the same thing. People that struggle to set boundaries, they suffer so much that they are pushed to the wall sometimes to then behave like what Thandi is saying, because they can't do it anymore. But what I was then advising was, please communicate your action and the reason and the outcome you're after, which is, she's already doing that. I cannot cope. I've tried telling you this is, I don't like this, or this is not for me. You're not getting it. I'm suffering mentally. I cannot do this. I am blocking you until you're ready to behave yourself around me. So it's up to that person to find other people either to misuse, abuse, or to rely on whichever that they're choosing to present. But for you, you are not going to continuously be a punch bag or a doormat, because people don't want to observe your boundaries. So this is where I will be coming from with this, I think.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Lynn.
I
hope that's understood.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you're very right, because sometimes you tell people, you put your boundary, you tell them, I don't like that, I don't appreciate that. And they'll keep on coming, telling you, today they will come with these words that will hurt you tomorrow, because you are internalizing the words as well. If they keep on telling you you're a witch, you're going to start believing you are actually a witch, so you just want to avoid being like emotionally abused, by the words they are saying. So blocking them temporarily, or maybe permanently, or whatever you choose to, it's up to you, depending on how the words or how it is affecting you.
Yes.
I don't know, because some people won't even, they won't go away, even if you put a boundary.
Yeah. So yes, I think we need to get into the culture of protecting ourselves, because other than relying on other people to behave, because they may never behave, and then what? Then we're always miserable because of that. We're always stressed because of that. So we need to take matters into our own hands. But like I said, always communicate your actions and why you're doing it, and then do it and stick with it. And like Thandi said, the person came after whatever month or two, whatever, and apologized. But people will never learn as long as we allow them to misbehave around us. So the words here are misbehaving around you. We cannot train people to behave around us if we still allow them to misbehave. So temporarily doing that will make them think, especially if you're important to them, or if the relationship with you is important, they'll come back. But they'll come back corrected. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to correct behavior. We're not trying to alienate anybody, but if somebody decides to go completely because they think what they were getting from you, they're not getting, so if it was money there, so to hell, they're gone, that's fine, which means your relationship wasn't good anyway. But if it was good, they will come back, but come back corrected. And then you'll have a beautiful, non-stressful relationship. And then you're less stressed. Okay, thank you very, 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 very much, everyone, for listening and participating. It's always a pleasure to come here. Thank you.
Mary Olga, you are a blessing. It is just, if you are not jealous, please just give a fire emoji, a thumbs up, a clap, just to appreciate one of our own for some awesome talent. And thank you for these personal growth tools that are going to enhance our mental health, even creating boundaries in families, personal relationships at work, and even for young people who are going to watch this on replay, or anybody else. It's been broadcasting live on our Support Hub page. Please replay, forward to your friends, networks across the globe, so we can enhance each other and have a beautiful life. Once again, let me thank each and every one of you, to our guest organizers, Mrs. Mishonga, Mrs. Mazando, for a sterling work in the background. You're allowed to talk, complain, whinge, be excited.
How many visits? Oh, I should know this.
You're Catholic, you should be able to get
Yeah,
that.
I should know this. I think, yeah.
Feel free to unmute your mics, comment on the questions, anything you want to say.
Woo. It's embarrassing, honestly. Who's famous for it? It says, oh, no, that's, no, it's not. That's nice.
That's a black poet, so you can't. Ben Jr. is in the lead, followed by Destiny. Yeah,
yes.
Feel right.
Yeah.
I've lost the screen now with the Torasa screen. I can't even go back to it.
The most popular social media.
I can't go back to it.
Most popular.
Also get a say now with we. The truly the screen.
Yeah, Ben Jr. still in the lead, followed by Sarah.
Someone has lost their screen. How do they go back to the screen, Mr. C?
They can relog back on their phone. I don't know if it's gonna accept them now because they have left.
Oh dear, how did I lose this? Oh, never mind.
Ben Jr. is still reading, followed by Sarah, and number 3 is Asterix. Destiny, where are you? Sam, where are you? Can't find you.
Sam was going with all these, and yeah, it's okay, Sam. Stay where you are, Sam. No, you can't.
You know. I'm sure you can.
I am in the lead.
Oh my God.
It's Ben Jr.
No,
Ben Jr. is
for slugs of 6 noses. 9 what?
Don't forget you get more points for answering quickly. And the leaderboard so far, Ben Jr., I don't know who's Asterix.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think I should be the one deleted.
That's a huge get, 54 points for Ben Jr.
What is the deadliest?
How come it's
more answers? More answers.
Is there? Okay.
Yeah.
Where are they? I think it
What
was
is the deadliest animal in the world?
I think it's the less obvious one.
Yeah, mosquito.
Oh, that's what I wanted to
Ben
put.
Jr. is still leading 6.
That's what I wanted to put.
CK5,
Who is Ben Jr. anyway? No.
Ben Jr.
Which animal gives birth standing up? Name.
Lion.
A goat actually does. It's not fair.
Yeah, even cow, yeah.
Ben Junior, yay.
What is
some is catching up now. North Korea.
You have to be quick on the mark to win this game.
It is wrong. Because I don't know.
Oh, you're on the leaderboard.
I am, surprisingly.
Sam and CK are tied at 42.
I said, yeah, man.
It's another good holiday destination is Pyongyang.
What does
With DNA?
shares with human.
The Sokos will know this.
I mean,
I don't know how much we look alike.
yeah.
Very bad.
That's me. Well done.
The Soko Mukanya era.
A human sneeze can travel about 100 ml.
With this COVID, I think it does 200. Yeah, I think it does 200 with this COVID. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Am I not the one in the lead now?
What's your username? I can check for you.
Sarah.
Yeah, number 6, but it's not
Yes,
over.
That's just
what is
what am I? I'm sorry, I'm gonna get it. Somebody people.
Destiny is coming up. She's tied with someone with asterisk P at number 5, Andre number 8. What's going on, Andre? You were coming up. Bro.
Yes, one comes to change
you could change his name to P. Diddy. Did
he actually change his name?
Less than a month ago, actually.
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, the gap is closing up between CK and Ben Jr.
All blood is red.
I said, oh, true or false, not all blood is red. So what? But it's true.
Akungoperekedzawo Ben Junior.
Oh, Sarah is at number 3. She's coming up, actually. This is Sarah, I know.
Yeah, nothing serious. Nothing serious.
What are the names of Beyonce? This one.
I think Northwest and Chicago.
And Ray is coming up. Sarah is moving up. Sarah is at number 3.
Really?
Yes, they are called Fair and Rumi, a boy and a girl.
Go Northwest in Chicago. Which fruits never ripen when they are still attached to the tree?
Me down. It's not over until it's over.
I don't know.
Avocado. My lemon.
Avocado.
Favorite fruit yangu.
Avocado kana radona rinenge risati raibva here nayo man.
Rinenge risati nozebva radona.
You have to be quick. You have to be quick now. 5 more questions.
Which is the most popular, most consumed in the world? A banana.
Some are still reading the questions. Some have already answered.
Ben Junior is.
I think I'm the one.
CK are tied at number 2.
Oh,
Sarah, how did you get there?
So for the
letter H is between G on a keyboard.
You're staring on a keyboard. You should be able to see. Ben Junior 90.
Yes.
98.
Yes.
Oh, Sarah 78. Sam 78.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Sam.
Yeah.
Ah,
Wow.
Sam, I know.
Sam, you're okay. Today you
Ah,
can
thank
say
God.
WCK. Andre,
Let
what's
people
going on?
the
originate.
original.
Oh, from
Name
when? Like,
Marwan.
I
Just
don't know.
out
Oh,
of
no, no, no. Ah, you
Japan.
pressed the wrong one. I pressed the other one by
Japan.
mistake.
Show Japan.
I never forget. No, for not get Greece, man, but the new rice.
Oh,
I
Then
Greece.
and Greece, but the Japan,
I can name this a Japan.
Greece is the
Nanti
rice
no
flour.
tunyoroti Greece ngati
Greece,
United States na
What color?
Black box.
Aircraft black.
aircraft black box.
Oh, dear. I mean, I cook.
Ben Junior, Sarah, and Sam are our top three. Andre still got a chance. CK is still got a chance.
Oh, that take a banana black box. Oh,
Bright
Why
orange.
do they call it bright or black boxy?
that's good.
Sarah is still holding on to second position.
True or false? A
Goodness, good.
heptagon has 8
Come on,
sides.
Sarah, you're a math
It's
teacher.
a
You should
body.
know this.
True.
Sam,
Aywa, hectagon
CK,
in 8 sides.
Andrea,
Hectagon, what is heptagon? Hectagon. Oh my God, I answered the wrong one.
Right, last question. We are locking things up now.
Ah, nice.
Mani Bunza mates how good is that? Oh my
No catching up to the Ben.
Ben, we are just
God.
we dealing with
Ah,
you.
no.
Era
Good
niko
to
rapi.
know
Ndi
somebody
ndi
that's gonna
endi
have fun.
murenga.
This is the
No.
last
Ndi
question
endi
now.
murenga naye Maru.
Today is mine. Today is my day. Akuman, I can't believe this. Wow.
Oh, ndi kucho.
Andre, you keep people today. Oh, that was awesome. You played your cards right. So let's look at the leaderboard now. Ben Jr., Andre, and Sarah, those are our winners for the quiz.